I may as well talk about fool's gold, aka Bitcoin. As I'm recording this podcast now, it's around 18,600, 18,700. So pretty close to the highs. And of course, we're very close to the all-time record high that Bitcoin set back in the end of 2017. And again, remember, there was all sorts of optimism and bullishness when Bitcoin did get near 20,000 3 years ago. Very few Bitcoin proponents expected it to crash back down near 3,000, but that's exactly what it did. And so now we're back up in the vicinity of those highs, and just about nobody expects another collapse. Pretty much everybody into Bitcoin assumes that getting above 20,000 is a foregone conclusion. In fact, it's going to be the breakout, which is going to launch Bitcoin to a much higher level. In fact, I think the bullishness that I am seeing in the financial media regarding Bitcoin is stronger than what I remember 3 years ago. I remember like CNBC, kind of jumped on the Bitcoin bandwagon as it was, approaching 20,000 and they got bullish. But I think back then they had more bears. There were more people on CNBC kind of casting doubt on the legitimacy of Bitcoin and talking about it as a bubble and tulip mania and stuff like that. Not anymore. It is very rare to see any negative coverage of Bitcoin anywhere in financial media. I can't even watch CNBC without seeing a commercial for Grayscale. I mean, it is a massive pump going on these commercials being supported by these news stories. In fact, even that Fox Business news story, if you see it on the internet, part of that story includes a video interview from Fox Business with Stuart Barney. And he's interviewing some Bitcoin guy. And Stuart Barney is just gushing all over Bitcoin. I mean, he's all but telling his viewers to run out and buy it. He is very, very pro-Bitcoin, no skepticism at all. And they're talking about supposedly Citibank had some call that Bitcoin was going to hit 300,000 by next year in 2021. That's more than 10 times the current price. And they were ascertaining or discussing rather this forecast as if it was very credible and very realistic. I mean, it wasn't like pie in the sky. Oh yeah, it's just gonna really, you can go to 300,000. Oh wow, that's fantastic. I mean, this is crazy coverage. I mean, the media is basically in love with Bitcoin. I've never seen them this excited about anything really since the dot-com days, right? When they were really excited about a lot of these stocks that ultimately went to zero. They're even more excited now about Bitcoin than they were about those stocks during that bubble. In fact, all news is good news when it comes to Bitcoin. I'm seeing more and more people trying to claim that the fact that Google search results for Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin and how to buy Bitcoin have not moved up at all. That they're nowhere near where they were in 2017. They're the same as they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that there is no new interest among the public in buying Bitcoin. And what they're saying is, oh, this is a great sign. See, this shows that it's not a bunch of speculation, right? So when Bitcoin went up to 20,000 3 years ago, it was all this crazy speculation because so many people were researching it and buying it. But now, because you don't have all these people searching for Bitcoin and how to buy Bitcoin, we don't have all this new money coming in. It's not a speculative bubble, right? This is real demand because it's not, a crazed public just jumping on a bandwagon. Of course, this is complete nonsense because if you remember 3 years ago, when Google search traffic was rising, everybody was claiming that that's why you should be bullish. Because after all, more people were getting interested in Bitcoin. So that means more people would be adopting it. It's going more mainstream. So back then they argued that the growing Google searches was a bullish sign. Now the same people are arguing that the lack of growth in Google searches is also a bullish sign. The reality is they were right back then. I mean, it is bullish if you have new players entering a pyramid scheme, because that's the only way pyramids can keep going. Pyramids need new buyers to bring in new money so that the earlier people can get out. But if we don't have a lot of new people coming into the market, then how do you keep the thing going? So the fact that we're not seeing a broadening of the Bitcoin market is not a bullish sign. I mean, what's really going on is the same people who were buying a few years ago are just buying more. It's not that there's a lot of more converts. It's just that the same people who were very enthusiastic a few years ago are just as enthusiastic now. And so maybe they're putting more money into Bitcoin and they're averaging up their price. But there's no way that this is a bullish sign. Yet in a bull market, every sign is bullish. Everything gets spin in a positive way. And that's exactly what's going on with Bitcoin. Now, I don't know whether or not Bitcoin is going to get above 20,000. I'd have to guess based on how close we are that the odds are that we will. But I seriously doubt a move above 20,000 will be sustained. I would imagine that there'll be massive selling at some point and it's going to drop like a rock. And it's possible that we don't even get there because so many people assume that it's a foregone conclusion that we will. You know, markets tend to find a way to disappoint the most number of people. And since just about everybody who owns Bitcoin, you know, believes that this is a sure thing, well, the market has a way of disappointing people who are that optimistic and that sure of what's going to happen. And you know, one of the other ironic things about the media's love affair with Bitcoin is if you look at a lot of these commentators who just love Bitcoin and think everything is great, these are mainstream guys. I mean, these are not guys who are bearish on the US stock market or the economy. They're not critics of fiat money or the central banks or the Fed. In fact, you know, they think the Fed is great. They think fiat money is great. They would never be buying gold because they think, well, gold's a waste of money. Why would you want to buy that? Gold doesn't pay any interest. It's just metal. It just sits there. You know, be in the stock market, be in the bond market, be in real estate. Everything is great. You're just a gloom and doomer, right? Every time I came on and tried to make arguments about why you need to own some gold, I mean, they jumped all over me. But people now come up and talk about Bitcoin. They make the exact same arguments that I made for gold, only now they're making those arguments for Bitcoin. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's great. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, buy Bitcoin. This whole thing is ridiculous. If they are really going to be this bullish on Bitcoin, they need to be bearish on everything else. They have to understand what this means, right? If fiat currencies are really going to collapse, if we're really going to have hyperinflation, they need to change their outlook on everything else. They can't be bullish on stocks and bullish on bonds and also bullish on Bitcoin. Also expect Bitcoin to go to 1 million, right? There is so much inconsistency here. So this bubble has basically, captured a large group of people. I mean, it is so intoxicating. You know, I tweeted out today a survey, and I know already what the results are going to be because all the Bitcoiners troll my Twitter account. But tulip mania happened almost 400 years ago. You know, the Dutch tulip craze. Yet everybody still knows about it today. 400 years later, it's still one of the best examples, if not the best example, of popular delusions and the madness of crowds. I mean, that was the name of the book that really wrote about it. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, even that book was written, in the 1850s or something. So that book itself is old, but people still know about tulip mania. My question would be, in 400 years, will people still be talking about Bitcoin mania? Will Bitcoin actually replace the tulip bulb as the quintessential bubble? When people study financial bubbles and manias, is it all going to be about Bitcoin? Are people going to forget about the tulip bulb? Because personally, I think this is a much better example of that dynamic and the hubris and the irrational exuberance that typifies any kind of mania or bubble. I think this is a far better example. As funny as the tulip bulb craze was, I think this beats it. I think tulip bulbs, you can make a better argument to support the value of a tulip bulb than you can to support the value of Bitcoin. Yet people could look back at the tulip mania and learn nothing with respect to Bitcoin. Everybody in Bitcoin knows about tulip mania, and they say, oh, those comparisons are ridiculous. Bitcoin isn't a tulip. That's right. A tulip has more value than Bitcoin.